Hi, I'm Ellie. I am a Master of Forestry student at Northern Arizona University, NAU, and I'm going to do a weekly wrap-up. So I've had my first, this is my second semester, spring 2021, but I've had 1 week of that semester, and I'm going to do these weekly. This one probably is one of the longer ones because it's the first one, but we'll just go over the classes I'm taking. I am going to be in forest insects, which I'm also calling bugs. Sorry, Dr. Holstever? I have to remember how to say his name. But bugs is just a lot more fun to say to me than forest insects. That is one class. I'm taking statistics because it is required. I am taking ecological economics, and I also have an independent study with Dr. Lark Saxena, who is also my advisor in the Human Dimensions Lab. So that is what I'm studying at NAU, forestry within the Human Dimensions Lab. So I'm going to go over what I learned. I'm going to try and do some of this by memory, but I have some notes so that I can hopefully be more accurate with what I remembered, what I thought was cool. And also, there was something else I wanted to say, but I'll remember it when I remember it. Okay, so first one is the forest insects. One of the things that I thought was super cool is that you can see some of the mountain pine bark beetle infestations from outer space. He showed us a picture which I thought I might be able to put up on here, but doesn't look like that's going to happen. Let's see, that you could see how massive this one infestation was, and that's not going to work at all either, but it looks, is there any way at all you can see that? It looks like a fire ring. I think all you can see is the reflection. Anyway, it looks like this one section in the woods is a circle, and it's just looks like a fall is happening because the beetles are infesting it so heavily. And then there's one little section in the middle that's still green. That's because it's a different species. So that's one of the things that bugs do. They actually promote biodiversity. Insects, excuse me. They promote biodiversity. They are more abundant than anything else on the living part of the planet. They are make up 60 to 70% of the species. They are found everywhere except in the deep ocean. Let's see, maybe forests are an opportunity to hold more insects, so that is one way that forests provide biodiversity, is with the insect population. The best way to take care of insects is by other insects. Those are their biggest, that's the biggest way that they are regulated. Most people in the United States think that insects are pretty creepy. If you look at our cultural, artistic, and pop culture displays of insects, they are generally pretty frightening, but that's not a view of most parts of the world. But also most parts of the world eat insects, so that's one reason they don't vilify them. They are a very efficient source of protein. Another cool thing is that they taste like what they eat. So a corn mealworm would taste like corn. Let's see, and they are the only thing on the planet with 6 legs. And lastly, each week, hopefully, I will have one word from each class. And the word from the forest insects is parastoid, which is insects that lay their eggs in other insects. All right, let's move on to statistics. There's an app called ScanBot that you can use that creates PDFs. You can also use the software program R. R is about coding, and that is going to be my big learning curve in statistics, is getting into R. Statistics answers the question, which is better, or is one better than the other? It helps you determine if there is a statistical difference between different ideas, different data. Capital N is the number, is the individual in the population. Lower N is the individuals in a sample. So you can't generally do the entire population. You have to take a sample of them. There are 3 generic ways to get samples. One is categorical, and that is for things that can't be put into numerical value, such as hair color, or genetics, or gender. Then there is, hold on, I'm getting a little confused. So there's 2 ways of looking at, there are 2 ways, I've forgotten the right word, but there's 2 of them. One is categorical, the other is numerical. Numerical can then be divided into a word that starts with a D and discrete or continuous. Numerical is discrete or continuous. Discrete means that you can't divide it, like you can't have 1.5 people. So discrete is whole integers, and continuous is continuous. So think of decimals. If it's 1 point something or another, if it can be divided into have a decimal, then it is a continuous numerical. Let's see, then there are 3 generic ways for sampling, and there's simple random sampling, which is SRS, and that is where every member of the population has an equal chance of being sampled. There is clustering, random clustering, and that is when you put them into clusters, and then so the sampling of the cluster is random, but every single member of the population has to be sampled within the cluster. The 3rd generic way is stratified or something like that. Yes, stratified sampling. And that you keep the same proportions in your sampling as you would of your population. Our example was with balloons. If you have your population has a certain percentage of red, green, and blue balloons, then your sampling would have the same percentage of those colors. And let's see, there's a bar chart, and that is for categorical data. They don't touch. If you look at a chart and there's one bar, one long block there and another one, and they're separate, those are bar charts. That's for categorical things. Then there's histograms, and those are for numerical data, and they touch. So that's where the charts would go up and down. Those are visual representations of statistical data. The word for stats is box chart, box plot. Box plot is how you're able to inspect categorical and numerical data relationships and put them into the same visual representation. But don't let the word confuse you. It really doesn't look like a box. The one example they had was lots of scattering going on. Okay, and the other important thing about it is it has a 5-point summary. You have to calculate the minimum, Q, which I think is the 25%, the median, which you can think of as a physical thing. Like the median is this one. You count 2, here's the median. Mean is math, and that's where you add it all up and divide it by the same numbers. Okay, so that's median. you have to come up with the Q3, which I believe is the 75 percentile part of it, and then you have the maximum. But that's where class ended, so I don't know very much about that one yet. Okay, now we'll go on to the third class, ecological economics. I have an entire full page plus a little more on ecological economics, because I was really fascinated with it. It's a very new concept to me. I studied econ in undergrad, but I had no idea that they had progressed so far into what economics could mean. So I'm going to go over a lot of the concepts in ecological economics because they resonate very deeply with me. One of the reasons I'm coming back to get my master's in forestry is to show that trees are worth more alive than dead. My undergrad was very, very heavily timber oriented. I have not used it in a career, mostly because I didn't want to sit inside. So, but also I just didn't, I wasn't into what they were studying and what they wanted me to do with all the trees. I do like them alive. I also use paper, so I respect that we need a variety of uses out of the forest. But to be able to come across an economics concept that is rooted in sustainability is phenomenal to me. Herman Daly is considered the father of ecological economics. He worked for the World Bank. It is considered the management of the humankind household. Sustainability is a key. Integration of the human economy and environment is a very, very key point of EE, is how I'm abbreviating it for short. It addresses, particularly for my class, it's going to address the non-market values of non-market evaluation of forests. It begins with the question, how can humans have a happy and long life? So it is not about material possession in and of itself. It asks this philosophical question, which I think is critical to know how we can move forward into sustainability. What are the ends? What ends do we desire? Is another way to look at that happy life. Let's see. It recognizes that there is an environmental carrying capacity. Macroeconomics, that is under the neoclassical micro and macroeconomics. Macroeconomics does not recognize there is an opportunity cost. It believes in unlimited growth. EE says that we need to get out of this growth concept, not out of development. The example they use is the human body. Like, I'm grown, but I'm still developing. Let's see. Neoclassical is all about efficiency, and that the market produces equilibrium, and that is the efficient allocation of scarce resources. EE also thinks there is efficiency, but it recognizes there's economics, there's the social world, and there's the environment. It recognizes there's an opportunity cost. There's such a thing as marginal utility and marginal cost. Marginal utility is what macroeconomics usually focuses on, because it doesn't recognize there's an opportunity cost. It doesn't say that there is an end, that it believes that the world is like an empty space and the economy is everything, and anything exists within the economy. One of the things that I was really fascinated about is I've been interested in the circular economy concept, but that was kind of blown out of the water on the first class, because there are leaks in it. You can circulate whatever waste products are produced from any goods that are created, but it requires new energy, and we are not a perpetual motion machine. So anytime that we take a material out and we use it and then we recycle it or reproduce it or put it back into that circular economy, we have to create new energy for it, use new energy, because we cannot create from the sun our own energy. There are expressed or non-market values, which is what I'm interested in. There's a marginal cost, that's the supply side. There's also a marginal dish utility, which says that there's choices, and that can mean regret. And if we were to take that into the long-term concept, that actually is where we are, that we have made certain choices with our environment and with our natural goods, and we don't really like the results of those choices that we made, that we do have some serious pollution and serious climate change impacts going on throughout our world at this point. Let's see. Oh, there's the prisoner's dilemma, which is something I'm interested in also because of what I'm going to be studying in my independent class. There's the open or private property concepts. The ecological economics is kind of in the middle, but what forests offer us really is not on that scale at all. The reason I'm interested in it is because my independent class is going to be on food security. So how, particularly in a larger context, I'm interested in public lands and wilderness, but I'll get into what I'm going to be studying with food security in just a moment. One of the things that they said to do is don't assume the moral high ground, that just because we think of because I may think of it in one way, somebody else thinks of it in another way. It's not necessarily that they're right or wrong, it's just that all of our views are most likely incomplete. Another one was to get used to other people's idea of valuation. Oh, that was another really beautiful one I wanted to show you. Maybe the sun has changed. You can see how the viewpoint normally is how we tend to do it in a Western world is this way, where here's what we're getting out of the forest, which also I have a particular issue with. And then this is the graph that a Navajo Masters of Forestry student produced. I think she was a Masters of Forestry. Anyway, she produced this graph, which the center there is H-O-Z-O. I just don't even want to butcher the Navajo pronunciation of it, Hozo. And then how everything emanates out from that concept of peace, balance, harmony, and maybe I didn't write down the peace, balance, beauty, and harmony. Let's see, the word for EE is panarchy. It is based out of the root word of pan, the Greek god for chaos, but also the Greek god for wine and good times, because you have to go through the panic to be able to get to the wine. All right, so panarchy is the duality of all complex systems, the apparent duality of complex systems, stability and change. And in this case, it is the economic growth and human development, that each of those depend on the ecosystem and our institutions and how they interact. All right, last one. Let's see if I got everything. I thought this econ is really exciting to me. Oh, one other quick thing. She showed us another graph where I think just a few years ago, I believe it was the Forest Service, had produced a graph that was society? No, that was actually the thing that was pretty interesting also. There was social, there was economics, and the environment, and how those three circles came together and at which points. And now they have come up with another one where here's the economy, here's the society, and here's the environment, that all the things are based in the environment. Hello, guess what? Without the earth, we wouldn't be here. Okay, so I thought that was pretty cool that they have changed the way that they are making their graphs and how they understand the rootedness of the environment. Okay, so my independent study is on forest values. That's the large concept of it, and specifically what I'm going to be studying is food. How forests provide, what role forests have in providing food. And I have had just one class with my professor, and we were mostly figuring out what the class is going to be and how to define it, so I don't have as many pieces of information about it yet, but I have pieces on what I'm going to be learning. So I'm going to be learning the difference between food sovereignty and food security. Sovereignty involves citizens' input. Security is about protecting and about the protection and distribution of existing food systems. I'm going to look at the management of forests across the various agencies. The U.S. is very heavy still in timber or rangeland. That's primarily BLM, Bureau of Land Management. And I feel like I'm running out of time. Trying to make this not so long. Sorry, you guys, but I'll get there. We'll just keep going. This is what I'm learning in school. Let's see, the Navajo are more interested in the whole concept of the forest than just timber. One of the things that they are interested in is food. Also, they manage it for fiber. They manage it for non-traditional, non-timber usages. Okay, so I have to pick a specific landscape and a specific community. Mine is going to be what role forests play in food security in the Navajo Nation in the Southwest U.S. The current science on food security is more focused on carbs and sugars, like a nutritionist viewpoint, a nutritionist's point of view, which is not how the Navajo view it. One of the things that is available here in the Southwest is pinyon pine, so I'm going to be looking a lot into that because it is a traditional source of protein. I'm also going to look at wildlife and how that is a source of protein. I will be looking into what barriers exist for the traditional views of food security. I will look at silvics, and how it's managed. That is actually what silviculture is. It's the management of forests. It sounds like a fancy word, but that's basically, it's the management of forests, and how those different agencies, including the First Nations, manage their forests. I'll look at the Sustainability Development Goals, SDG, from the UN, and we'll look at 4 of those. First one is no poverty. I'll look at the second one, which is zero hunger. I will look at the 12th one, which is responsible consumption and production. The 13th, climate action, because climate change is a real issue. It is definitely already impacting the Southwest significantly because we are experiencing drier and warmer conditions. How does that impact food security? Then the fifth Sustainable Development Goal that I'll look at is life on land, which involves forests. Okay, and to begin, the first thing I'm going to be looking at is the concepts of wilderness and pristine. We'll look into the Clifford Pinchot, who founded the U.S. Forest Service, and his views and his associates' views, how they approach the concept of wilderness and what pristine means, which from my other classes I already realized there's not such a thing as pristine. But I will delve into that a little more and see how the history of the nature and culture divide impacts the First Nations. And the word for my independent study is agroforestry, which is It is the intent to intentionally produce woody materials such as trees or shrubs or bamboos in the same landscape as you would agricultural products, whether that is crops or animals. Okay, thank you very much. I'll see you next week, and we'll see how much smoother it goes. Round 2. Ciao, ciao, ciao.